Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. 2 months plus of this, if I may use the word damn war in Ukraine. It's draining out pretty much every little thing from across the world. We are feeling it in India when we go to the fuel stations, when we buy vegetables, when we buy food. And I'm sure if this drags on, the time that is already dragged on to till now, a lot many more things will start getting affected. Question that I want to ask: when will this war end, or will it ever end? What will this entire situation come down to? Is there something either side can show to stop the senseless fighting which is actually going on in that region? To discuss this, I have with me Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar. Sir, we've discussed the Ukraine war from all angles, and today it's a bit of a confusing scenario as to what is happening. No big movements, one attack here, one attack there. That's just about it.
Hi, good evening and good evening to all your viewers. Thanks for calling me over to the show again. The short answer is this war is not going to end in a hurry, right? We've always known that this war was being fought at two levels. One was between Ukraine and Russia, which held the center stage till now, and the other war was between Russia and USA, or Russia, NATO, and USA and EU combined. Now that war has now taken over. This war has become irrelevant. Okay, uh, Russia has not made great progress in the eastern offensive. They are capturing village by village using firepower. They're destroying. They've laid Ukraine to waste, if I may say so. They started hitting bridges. They've hit railway stations. They've hit a lot of infrastructure. So where does it lead them? It's not getting them territory. Until they get some kind of territory, they cannot declare victory. Right? Even after getting territory, they might not be able to declare victory. Right? And the Ukrainians are now getting help from the NATO and US, so they'll continue with this war. In fact, I get the feeling that Mr. Zelensky is not being allowed to come to the table and compromise. And this is what one analyst had said, who said Boris Johnson, when he went to Kyiv, those are the things that do not surrender and not this thing. So you will not see this war ending in a hurry. And you will see, in my opinion, USA prosecuting this hybrid war at no cost. All the while bleeding Russia. The whole game has changed.
You hinted on a certain aspect of the war that I wanted to talk about right at the beginning. We've discussed this earlier with regards to the weapons which are flowing into Ukraine. We know that they're not the top of the line weapons. We know there's been a lot of bad reviews about the weapons in the field, even by the Ukrainians themselves, wherein the javelins are misfiring, and there are a whole lot of issues which are there. Of course, training also does matter. But leaving all that thing aside, sir, my question is, as you also mentioned, you kind of referred to it, with the amount of weapons that are flowing into Ukraine, there is a feeling which Ukraine is probably getting that they can continue this fight and, get to a point of strength with the Russians, dragging this damn thing on. How do you analyze, one, the weapons that are coming in today? Secondly, how are Ukrainians justifying this to themselves, sir?
Look, there is no justification to carry on this effort. I mean, we'll talk of it. With the weapons which they're getting, even if they're second hand and not very great, and they're not this thing, it will enable Ukraine to sustain the war.
Yeah.
They might lose, and you must understand that this war is largely fought through artillery, and what Ukraine is getting is artillery.
Yes.
So if artillery is given to Ukraine and they are able to use it imaginatively, and they will use it imaginatively because so far they've used it imaginatively. So I don't see why they will not. So if they use it imaginatively, they'll Russia will not be able to make headway. Okay. Now, and this might continue for another month or so. Right. By the time Russia is able to make a headway, this war will become meaningless. Okay. Now, why are they continuing? It will. By now, Ukrainians would, for every Ukrainian, uh, the Russian army and Russia would be the ultimate enemy. So they will not go back. They'll say, okay, we've lost everything, so we might as well fight. And that's about it. It's as simple as that. And whatever they've lost, they've lost. Most of the people in this belt, at least, would have left or
Yeah.
got displaced, right? So they're just fighting for the land. And right, and if they get something, they can inflict some uh, damage back on the Russians. And now they'll go all the more, side with the US to continue with this hybrid war. And this is only the formal hybrid war, conventional hybrid war. There will be another form which will come out. We'll see how it comes out.
Interesting points. Although I don't think we wanted to talk about it, but I'm going to take your closing comments on this conventional hybrid war that you've hinted to. That's something which is very new in the era of evolving warfare, if I may say so. So we'll go to the this particular thing at the end of the interview. This to me is very interesting. But so now let's come back to what Ukraine has done. Is we saw when the Battle of Kiev was kind of coming across, Ukraine's President Zelensky had come across and said, we are ready to talk about Crimea, we're ready to talk about Donbas, we're ready to talk about a neutrality stance. They were talking in Turkey, they talked
Yeah,
in Minsk, and all that happened. And one really thought, okay, there's some talks, at least they're talking. Today, that stance has been completely rubbished by the Ukrainians, and then they're now saying that we will only stop when it is the time for Russia to capitulate.
yeah.
That this is a statement that came out about a day or two ago. How do you analyze this, sir?
See, I think the Russians missed the bus. When they had the chance to close the deal, they didn't. Right? Uh, okay. And one, they didn't, and they probably militarily couldn't. There is a bit of military ineptitude which is very clear with the Russians. Okay. Uh, Poor leadership,
Hmm.
poor military connect. Their ground soldiers have not performed that well. And like I said, the aim of the war is not known, right? From the dash to the key, the shock on air, then withdrawing the northern thrust line and reinforcing the eastern one, and the eastern one also going the way it is going. The plan, the connect, it's all uh, going nowhere. So Russia is not able to move beyond. I think Ukrainians have sensed that Russia cannot do much, and they also sense that if what the USA is giving them in terms of aid comes through, and they're able to use it, they'll be able to hold the line and continue with it. And they're now ready to inflict damage on Russia as more of a revenge, right? And that's the sense, and that's why. And like I told you earlier, this whole story, if you see, after Mr. Boris Johnson landed in
Hmm.
Kyiv and had a discussion, that was when the whole thing changed about, uh, you know, the moment the danger to Kyiv was taken off, the Ukrainians started singing a different song. They were no more interested in a negotiated settlement, also. Right? So, till the time there was danger on Kyiv, they were looking at a settlement. That's gone. And so now, and if you see, this area where this fighting is going on is virtually the same area where fighting has been going on for 8 years.
Minor
Barring a
here or
little bit.
there, 5 kilometers.
Yeah. So, you virtually, from the Ukrainian point of view, they've lost no territory. Hardly any territory they've lost. Okay. This area anyway was not with them.
Yeah,
So whether they negotiate or not, there's no issue. It's only that little area around Kherson and Zaporozhye, which they've lost, right? And they'll continue with this.
That's an interesting look at this entire situation, sir, because what uh, is obviously the narrative that is being put across, that that's the weakening of Russia is something which is required, and this was for the first time mentioned by Lord Austin when he was on his visit to Kiev, meeting with President Zelensky. Till then, one wondered what was the Western motive of being in this war. Yes, weakening of Russia. I mean, they want to target Russia, make them this thing, this thing, this thing. Well, this was the first time they came and spelled it out, sir.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I wrote in my article also. This war has changed. It's no more a war between you. The Ukraine and Russia war is a sideshow. The main war today is between, USA and Russia. Ukraine is just the battlefield, and Ukrainians are just the soldiers. Okay, and Russia is fighting. It's getting bled now, and it will continue to keep getting bleeded. It doesn't matter what happens to Ukraine as far as USA is concerned. They'll keep throwing money into it, right? USA is not committing one soldier on its part, right? USA's economy will go up as resultant. Yeah, there'll be an energy imbalance, but it doesn't affect America.
Yeah,
they have energy. So the whole thing is, the complexion of this whole thing has changed. And if you notice, there is a switch in the American behavior, and they now started looking at
China.
China. Okay, and the fact that the Chinese have struck a deal with Solomon Islands has set off warning bells in USA and Australia and all this. Now they're looking there. There's a lot of talk in Japan. There's a lot of talk in South Korea, right? Even in Philippines elections are going on, so
Yes.
there is something going on there. So the focus has shifted, and everyone now is very clear that this will continue for another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. We don't know. It will not. There's no end in sight, right? And Russia can't disengage. See, the smartest move by Mr. Putin will be declare a victory and disengage. But can he do that? That's a
You know what, sir? You've kind of spelled out my next question by yourself, and I'd like you to answer that. Let's say he kind of straightens out that horseshoe. He gets his alleged water supply for the Crimean Peninsula, which was cut off by the Ukrainians in 2015. He straightens up his defenses on some river line or some road line or some bridge line or whatever it is. I'm not a military expert, so I won't be able to comment on the exact topography of the entire situation. Let's say he does that in the next, as we are speaking, his tanks roll out, tuck, 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 they do it. He says
tanks
ceasefire.
won't roll out. See, look, tanks won't roll
That's
out.
a different story, sir. My question is, let's
Tanks
say
won't roll out for at least 1 month more. The way, right?
where they're going.
And the way they're going. So if he takes Kramatorsk, which is the center focus of this
Yeah.
horseshoe, he'll get a little more area. And whatever Kherson and Zaporozhye, if he gets that line and joins it up in a shallower horseshoe, and he secures water to the Crimean Peninsula, I think at least then he should stop the story and say, look, I've done what I have to do. I am declaring ceasefire. I will hold a referendum here. He'll hold a referendum, win that thing, and declare them as some independent states or whatever he wants to do, and get out. Because will he do it is a different question. Will he be allowed to do it is a
That's my
different
question,
question.
sir.
See, I told you, this war is not going to end in a hurry, because now Ukrainians have got artillery, everything. They're going to fire, they're going to provoke. And if something happens in this thing, if there is firing going on and all, how will they disengage? Disengagement and ceasefire is two-sided. It can't be a
Absolutely.
one-sided affair, right? Russia cannot withdraw, so they're stuck actually. Though you keep hearing, news this thing that artillery is coming and they're taking village by village, village by village. They keep taking village by village. For how long will they take?
That was my
At,
question.
at some point of time, the Russian war machinery will start getting hurt. One. Number two, in terms of the ammunition expenditure, it's not
Mm.
good to have a launcher or a gun. Ammunition. How much ammunition will Russia be able to spend on this? How many missiles will they be able to expend on this? What is that cutoff line when they said, look, we cannot expend more. Beyond this, I'll be weakened for any other threat. Okay. Beyond this, if I have my military thing going below this, uh, I might have a problem with China also. Everyone is sensing this. There are a lot of articles which say that the Russians might be at their, limit of where they can afford this war anymore militarily in terms of ammunition. Okay, so that is also to be seen. How much can Russia this thing? And let's face it, the Russian economics wouldn't be in a great shape. Right? They'll withstand the sanctions, but that doesn't mean the economy will be running high. Okay, there are going to be second order effects on this whole
Long term
story. It's
effects,
not,
yes, sir.
yeah,
In the short term, they're gaining. Their ruble is becoming
yeah, but the
stronger.
long term there will be problems for Russia,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're not, after all, who will buy their oil? Even India is saying we're not going to pay you the $70. You have to reduce. So you might have oil which you have to force to sell at a lesser. See, you have to take the Iran model. What happened to Iran? Iran was doing well, everything. The embargo on Iran oil, hit Iran so badly that they have not been able to recover so far. And they had to do a sale with China on a discounted rate.
Yeah.
So whatever your resources, it's not getting you the money which you was getting earlier. Your
Deserved, yes,
economy
sir.
has to get hit. Add to the fact that a lot of items which are made in Russia have components from EU and USA. Uh, for example, let me give you a practical example, and this is not new. This is about 10-15 years back. We bought some rocket launchers from, Russia. They were having some issues, metallurgical issues. So when we went into details, we realized that this metal didn't come from Russia; it came from Germany.
Mm.
So there are a lot of things which are not Russian. The Russians might be selling that item, might be making that item, and all that, but the source is EU, or right now those links are being cut. See, the effect of globalization is going to hit
Oh, yeah.
Russia.
And it's both ways, so it's how long each other can sustain.
Yeah, sustain. And they are all together. They'll start trading. They'll start opening new channels. Whereas he can't go anywhere except China.
China,
So
India.
at some point, it will start hitting. He'll stabilize. It's a different story, but there'll be a problem.
So,
Hmm.
so sir, it's a weird situation where I think both the sides are not wanting this thing to drag on, but it's kind of, because it's hurting the entire thing, except America is probably a little more virulent in terms of its economy and stuff like that. But they're also, the first quarter they've gone through a recession. I don't know how far they'll be able to sustain this. Having said that, sir, it is now established fact that the movement east of NATO has been provoking Russia. And funnily speaking, even the Pope used some very colorful language with regards to this entire incident. And, it was a bit of a funny thing to see the Pope speaking like that. Now we see Sweden, we see Finland, they're talking about this thing. USA has come across, UK has come across and said, even if Sweden and Finland are not members of the NATO, and something happens, we are going to protect them militarily. This is a poke on the other shoulder of Russia. How do you see this evolving now?
See, Sweden and Finland are vulnerable, right? This is not now, it's a historic
Yeah.
vulnerability from the north. Okay. Now, if Russia starts doing something there, that vulnerability gets them down right into the English Channel at the head. Okay, if you see the geography, right? So they will do something, right? They have to do something, basically for EU unity, or rather for EU continuance as a whole, and NATO relevance as a whole, though they are not part of it. So something will happen. They will do anything. And if Russia goes there and they sense that it is an overstretch on the part of Russia, and Russia has to fight on two fronts, they'll draw Russia in there and again squeeze in from here. So I don't think Russia is foolish enough, because all this thing that they will do something against Finland, Sweden, and all is coming from NATO, nothing from Russia.
Nothing. No, not a statement. Yeah,
Uh,
that's
Not a statement, and no movement has also been indicated there. Okay, so let us see. I don't think that will go to that level. It's more rhetoric. It is more right, and that's how it is.
sure. My last question is, obviously, I just note down when you gave your first answer is about the conventional hybrid warfare. But before that, sir, my another simple little thing, and this is a more of a, I think this is a more of an emotional question, wherein you see a country which is being basically dragged into disaster. Uh, no matter if the Ukrainians and the West are at a point where they can actually beat back or push back or even streamline the Russians in that entire area, one thing that we're going to notice is Ukraine is going to be a barren rump state. Nothing beyond that. Their natural resources and their capability of using their natural resources, their population, half of it is sitting in the Mexican border. The half of the guys who are worth something are sitting in the Mexican border trying to get into the States or even the UK and France somewhere. So there's been a complete breakdown of the social dynamic, um, the ethos, the probably the brain drain which has happened from that country. Don't you think that at some point of time the Ukrainian public is going to say enough, stop it?
Look, I'll put it this way: uh, this Donbas area and all that was the most productive part of Ukraine. That's gone now to Russia,
Yeah,
or rather, right?
Ukraine.
And whatever is left is not that productive. It's not that thing. And even in that, you have got a huge refugee problem. They are in such a state of disarray that they can't say stop it. I don't think they're in a position to say stop it. Okay, fear will make them continue to fight. What is their alternative?
Nothing.
Alternative is to become part of Russia. So I don't think any the whatever voice had to come from within Ukraine should have come a month back. It's now
Gone
too
now.
late. That's gone. Okay. And with the kind of people saying, "Oh, this is a victory," we've driven them away from Kiev, and the propaganda, which is internal propaganda, which is going on, every Ukrainian will say continue to fight. And as far as the fighting is in somewhere near the Donbas, and in that, the fighting, like I said, is irrelevant. The issue is, will restructuring and rebuilding of Ukraine start? When will it start? That is the bigger question. Okay. And that will start, I suppose, in about 2-3 months' time. That will also start with some aid and this and that.
Hmm.
But ultimately, what you said is right, that Ukraine is a destroyed nation. People are all over, the infrastructure has a lot of gone. Their capability, their defense exports, their wheat exports, everything would have got hit. It will take another 1 year for it. And then where it will
Even
go, we
more.
don't know. So we don't know. So Ukraine is destroyed is a given. Now, there's no two ways about it. Okay. I mean, it's in such a state whether it doesn't matter that Ukraine is part of NATO or not also.
Yeah.
Right. And so all these issues are there. it's a pretty sorry state, but that's what it is, and this war is not going to end.
Yeah, as far as the propaganda is concerned, we see them going back on their own propaganda about
Yeah.
yesterday. The truth about the Snake Island came out. The Ghost of Kiev story has been beaten back.
So this is not going to finish.
Yeah, it's just unraveling now.
Yeah.
It's sad, sir. Now, sir, this has been ringing in my head. Hybrid warfare, supposed to be not conventional. Now, you're talking about conventional hybrid warfare.
When you say conventional hybrid warfare, it is using conventional tactics, conventional weapons, and keeping it low key with the help of Ukraine. And this has to be seen in the context of USA Russia, not Ukraine Russia.
Ukraine is not a player, so yes.
Right? So they'll by conventional methods. Okay. A proxy war and a hybrid war. There will be cyber attacks will increase on Russia. Information war will continue. Economic war will continue. The other dimensions of war will start increasing. There'll be issues related to space, economy, of course, agriculture, energy. Those domains will start increasing. Okay, the military domain will remain little low,
just below the horizon.
But it will continue, undecisive but not at peace. So that will continue. You will see a thing. The thing is, all this is in the conventional domain. When I say unconventional domain, will it get down to terrorism and things like that? That is to be seen.
Terrorism,
right?
Anarchy.
Look, anarchy is internal to Ukraine or Russia. That's not a problem. Will we also heard of the right-wing units, Nazi things.
As of Stalin, as of
yes. So will they start something else? Will Russia have to start fighting behind its back?
Yeah.
Okay. Will Russian interests worldwide get hit? Okay. So these are the things which are over the horizon. Will it happen or not? I don't know. But can it happen? Yes, it can.
I think you put it across very nicely in the beginning of the interview. It's going to be what we went through in Kashmir for the past 30 years is going to be a Kashmir for Russia.
Yeah, actually, you put it right. Russia has got its own Kashmir in Ukraine and Donbas.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where it is.
Kashmir issue was also created because of an undecided end to a war. I think as we are also seeing that the undecided
end
nature of this particular warfare is going to create a whole lot of problems for that region, for Russia, for whatever's left of Ukraine, and that the poor people from that region who are probably halfway across the world trying to see what they can do from there. The people in Donbas, where the entire fighting is happening right now, and of course, people in Europe, America, and you and me, sir, who's paying a little more for our, to fill up our tanks. So it's affecting everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I think a very, bright-eyed and clear analysis because there's a lot of confusion that we see emanating from both the sides, and that's of course part of the war propaganda. It's taken a step forward in this particular thing that we've seen also. But having said that, analyzing this, seeing this, and realizing the topic of this video, that the end of this war cannot be seen.
Yeah, it can't be.
We have further updates on this particular thing. We will come back to you on another session on, of course, the Ukraine war. But till then, I think we're going to focus a little more towards our northeastern neighbor, which is China, the Indo-Pacific, and a lot many developments that are going to take place in this region. Till then, sir, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Jai Hind, sir.
First class.